All right, so we're well into the day. Everybody's still looking pretty sprightly, which is good. So if any of you are supposed to be in track 1, this is not track 1, this is track 2. And we're going to be looking at tech. So for those of you that didn't see me in the introduction, my name's Emma Green. I'm an associate here at Bird & Bird. And we've been working with the wellness industry now for about 4 years. So there's lots more in your goodie bags, and obviously catch me afterwards if you want to know more about what we're doing to support businesses in wellness. But this session is obviously, thankfully, not about me. And instead, we're going to be looking at tech innovation, spearheading a new wave of wellness. And we've got 3 amazing panelists with me here this afternoon. So I'm going to go down the row and introduce them to you. So far side, we've got Jack Connors, Active Lab Program Manager from ukactive. We've got Nicky Hemmings, Lead Psychologist at BioBeats, and Phil Davison, Founder at Mother. So I'm going to let you all just introduce yourselves to the audience.
All right, cool. So Jack from ukactive. ukactive are a not-for-profit health body. We represent around 4,000 members and partners from around the UK, focusing on getting more people more active more often. My colleagues Anna and Anne, who are currently sat on the front row and are going to glare at me for this entire talk, are here who work on the workplace wellbeing and campaign side of stuff as well. So if you're interested in that area, please talk to them. But my particular area of focus is tech and innovation and how we can use technology to get more people active.
Nicky?
Hello everyone, I'm Nicky. I'm Lead Psychologist at BioBeats. We're all about bringing AI to wellbeing, specifically in the workplace. There's a team of about 20 of us. We've got an office just down in Waterloo, an office in Pisa. I'm actually from Bristol and I work remotely. Part of my role is about bringing evidence to the workplace, so bringing a real science-based approach to wellbeing to make sure people are asking the right questions with the right solutions.
I'm Phil. I'm the founder of Mother, not to be confused with the creative agency. We are a innovative, smart, digitalized vending business. We've created our own proprietary technology that drives digitalized vending machines. We've got about 70 to 80 machines all across the southeast. We work with businesses like Apple, Amazon, Barclays, and Virgin Active, amongst others.
That's great. Thanks all very much for being here. I know that tech is always a massive issue that businesses want to talk about. It's disrupting a lot of industries, not just wellness, but across retail and consumer more generally. So I think we can start at a slightly macro level. What, for each of you, have you seen the impact of technology really having in the wellness sector? And what have you noticed over the last couple of years that's really happened?
I can jump in first. I think for me, and I'm obviously going to be slightly biased and skew this towards vending machines, but I think the advent of like smart devices, smart machines, obviously on the device front, just over the last 5 years, the prevalence of people with sort of, smart watches and the data that they can provide to the user. And I think that sort of, transcends to smart machines as well. And I think, from a vending specific point of view, like the data that we can gain from smart machines and smart vending machines allows us to offer a more sort of personalized, customized experience. So it just makes them a wholly more relevant and useful kind of use and experience of technology.
Yeah, definitely. If any of you have just been over in track 1, you've seen data as a big kind of hot topic of conversation. Nicky, what about you? What have you seen?
Yeah, so I've worked in wellbeing in the workplace for years, and I've worked in wellbeing tech for the last 5 or 6. And I've seen a huge change. When I first started in this area, no one knew what an app was, and it's changed a lot. What I've noticed recently is that there's lots of services for your mind. There's lots of different apps and different services you can get for that, and lots for your body, but there's not many that bring the two together. And that's what we do at BioBeats. So we're all about bringing the mind and body together. Something called interoception. So I'm very aware now that my heart is beating very fast. I'm guessing you've all had lunch today, so you're probably not feeling any hunger pangs. But that's what interoception is. It's your understanding about how your body's feeling. That's what we're working with. And the reason I bring it up is that that's very new research coming out of Oxford University that we're taking into the workplace. So we're applying research that's quite new. We're bringing it to the masses, and that's what's really important for us. And I see a huge change in that. There's a lot more science-based products out there at the moment.
That sounds really exciting. Jack, what about you?
So for me, from a pure physical activity point of view, I think we've seen a big change in the core narrative around technology. So 3 years ago, people were looking at Netflix, Deliveroo, Uber, which are taking physical activity out of everyday life. But I think now that's completely flipped on its head. And actually people are starting to see the impact of technology on physical activity. So you've got Peloton, valued at $8 billion. 8 billion. But, you know, that shows how investable physical activity is in technology. I think you've seen organisations like the NHS, who are incredible but archaic, but are now developing branches of their organisations like NHSX to make sure that they start thinking about how they can adopt technology. So I think there's a real step change over the past 3 years.
Yeah, definitely. And that leads really nicely actually onto what we're going to focus on as the role of technology in wellness. And Jack, obviously, Active Lab is an accelerator program for startups in the digital physical activity space. Give us a bit more background as to how that kind of works and what kind of engagement you've seen with the accelerator program.
Yes, so Active Lab, it's the digital transformation arm of UK Active, but right at its core, it's a 12-week accelerator program where we work with startups from around the world to help them scale throughout the UK's physical activity sector. So to give you an idea, over the past 3 years, we've interacted with 210 startups from 20 different countries around the world. And we've seen trends change a lot over those 3 years, which is really interesting. But why we actually developed Active Lab in the first place was, first of all, technology is a reality within physical activity. We have to learn to grasp it. And if we don't, we will fall behind. I think that's the same across any industry now. But also what's interesting for us is I think there's a demand from both sides of the fence. Commercial organizations want to adopt technology. We've done research into this space, and we released a report in March called The Current State of FitTech. And in that report, we interviewed many different commercial organizations of all different sizes, and they were saying there's two reasons why we want to adopt technology. One is because we want to drive better user experiences. And I think the news about Dignity today kind of shows that. You know, they're franchising well, and they've built their model on tech. And by the way, I think because they built it on tech, they're going to be able to franchise it quite easily, which is really interesting. But then they were also saying, you know, we want to build our businesses on strong foundations, and we want to understand the data. So you're listening to Ian in the first panel about what data really means to organizations. Was interesting because people are now looking at it closer and closer and closer. But on the other side of the fence with the consumer, part of that research was a bit of consumer insight, and 79% of people are now using technology to support their health and well-being. We, to be honest, had no idea about that, and neither did the sector. But that lights up everyone's eyes and says, actually, programs like Active Lab are really important because we've got to adopt technology in impactful ways.
Yeah, definitely. And we supported Active Lab earlier this year as well, and the businesses are really, really cool, like really different ideas. So there's definitely a lot of elements of the market that's still out there to be captured. I think, Phil, going back to what you were saying about, you know, vending machines, probably one of the areas of retail products that has been untouched for a very long time. How have you been able to harness that fact and kind of use technology to really change what was a very traditional model?
I mean, I think vending historically is a very unsexy, unloved sort of, sector. But actually, it's just another form of retail. Mm-hmm. And I think the evolution of technology, and especially like smart devices and touchscreens, is perfectly suited to sort of, transcending onto physical machines. So, we were talking about smart devices before, but just purely like smart machines, like the technology that we've designed is just taking an old school vending machine and making it futuristic. And I think, what we've done really strikes sort of on three key consumer trends, which is convenience, health, and technology. Yeah. We live in a true sort of 24/7 age, and people are constantly on the move, on the go, and therefore convenience food serves a real purpose in modern society. And I don't think convenience food should be looked as necessarily a bad thing. There's obviously a certain stigma attached to convenience food, but actually you look at the advent of some of the incredible sort of healthy snacking brands in the marketplace over the last 5, maybe 10 years. And there's a whole host of incredible brands. And what we do is, we just almost curate those different brands and we bring them inside a futuristic vending machine. And that's where it sort of comes into its own. It's, the customer interaction and that experience and the information that we can give consumers about the products, the nutritional information, the dietary preferences, everything like that. And that's what sort of modern consumers who are health conscious care about.
Yeah, I think that definitely speaks to what Nicky was saying before about people becoming more attuned to how they feel and what they want to approach in their diet, their lifestyle. I think, definitely out of hours vending is almost seen, you're snacking on the go. Why is that such a taboo? So if you guys are kind of plugging that gap and making it more accessible,
exactly,
it's really exciting, yeah. So Nicky, touching on something you spoke about at the beginning and a trend that we've seen generally to the honesty, I suppose, of some evidence and the responsibility of the content that providers are using and pushing out to their consumers. How is BioBeats looking at that to make sure that you're approaching it differently?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a huge advocate for this anyway. I like things being done proper and bring the science behind it. And it's not just in wellness, I'd say across any organizational service, there's a lot of snake oil out there, which is potentially very dangerous. And when we're talking about health and well-being, it's incredibly dangerous. So what we do, we have a huge science team. We make sure that any content that we provide in the app is from published studies, peer-reviewed journals. So other relevant bodies have looked at that study and made sure it's a valid study. It's not just produced by the company who created it. We also check that the product does what it says on the tin, basically. And that's my role. It's all about making sure we're science-backed, evidence-based. So everything that goes into our product is based on research, whether it's the content, whether it's the measures we use. So we use validated scientific measures to see if people are at risk of depression or not and make sure that they get the help that they need if they are. But also that we check that the product as a whole does what it says in the tin. So running longitudinal studies, running RCTs to check that it is making the desired changes in the right populations.
Yeah, and so that sounds, you're obviously an expert. To me, that sounds very complicated.
It can be. But.
Yeah. But does that in itself present, and we're blending slightly into the second topic that we wanted to talk about with how to adopt technology within wellness, does that present quite a significant barrier, or what are the kind of challenges that businesses might face in trying to, emulate that same kind of approach?
To be honest, I think it's really hard. As a scientist, I do this every day. I evaluate what's out there, the products that are out there, I evaluate research. I do this day in, day out, and it's still really hard to check to see if a study is valid, if it was done right, if the controls are right. And to be honest, if you're in HR, that's usually the people we're talking to in terms of sales, to be able to look at different products and work out which is more valid is really hard. And we're working on educating the market about what you need to look for, what kind of studies you need to look for, what accreditation you need to look for. But at the moment, I think we're in this interesting, I wouldn't say Wild West, that's a strong word, but there is a lot of stuff out there that makes it confusing. And I think people are being overwhelmed with the options and working out what's right for them. That's why things like personalized approach, using data in the right ways is an incredible way forward.
Yeah, so would your advice to businesses looking to adopt that kind of approach be, dive deep into the education around it?
And speak to academics. They're friendly most of the time. They can help you link with universities. If you're interested in a particular topic, there are usually people who spend their whole days looking at this area, and they'll be able to give you advice. And that's what we work with. We're very much linking science and practice. So speaking with HR teams, working out what they need, what they want, speaking with our users, and linking with that with the hard science that's coming out of places like Oxford, Exeter, and different universities like that, to sort of bring the two together. And that's also part of my role, is to make sure that we're translating both ways.
Yeah, that's really cool. So Jack, so touch on perhaps, we all know if you live in London or around London, or you live in big cities, you're probably fairly conscious as a consumer about what wellness is. You might have a lot of different wellness offerings, but I think we've discussed at length before that there's a whole world outside of London. So fit tech, I think, is something that perhaps has real reach in terms of who it can help and how it can change the industry. So what's your view on how businesses can adopt fit tech to kind of leverage that and access that new market?
Yeah, so first of all, I completely agree with Nicky around the whole education piece. I'm now reluctant to talk about any research that we've delivered because this is love you. But I encourage you to look at it. But again, when we were looking at all the businesses of physical activity who are looking to adopt fit tech, the same kind of barriers were coming up over and over again. You've got the classic ones like cost. Technology is often more expensive. That's the game, but there's an ROI on that, and people need to communicate the ROI a lot better. And then I think there's also a realism about all of this as well, that a lot of the large organizations in our space are just not equipped to work with innovative small organizations. So even if you're going to dig down as deep as procurement processes, they can't work with small organizations who need quick payment schedules because they're not set up for that. So we're starting to work with these large organizations to help them get around those procurement processes and start thinking about how they can adjust them slightly. But to get back to the education point, commercial organizations need to have an understanding what impact technology is going to have from boardroom through to gym floor, in our instance. But in any wellness organization or any company, from boardroom through to the bottom. And ways to implement that. So we've always said to the organizations we work with, why isn't there a digital champion on your board? Why are you not building in technology right at the beginning of your business strategy planning to make sure that you're not retrofitting it later on down the line? Because that's so much more difficult than building it in from the beginning. But for businesses who are looking to engage with these bigger organizations, what we want to encourage and what we do through Active Lab is just say, be part of this education. Do not just drop technology into an organization and say, there you go, we've got through this whole procurement process, well done us, now go and implement it yourselves. Large organizations aren't equipped for that and they can't do it, and then you're going to get a bad reputation yourselves because you're not seeing the impact that you said that you were going to achieve. So get into the boardroom if you can, provide as much guidance as you can, be really clear on the amount of help that you can provide throughout the whole implementation process. And when that implementation process is done, don't stop there. Your technology is constantly improving and iterations are constantly coming out. Keep on explaining that to your partners and say, this is how you can continue to use our technology. But the core barrier for me is small businesses over-promising all the time, especially with technology. Oh, we're going to solve every single one of your problems with a click of the fingers, and it's just not the case. Start small, absolutely nail it, and then fix the big problems after. That's what we advise.
That is a great takeaway if anybody wants to do an Instagram quote. I think that would be a good topic. Phil, then I think talking about healthy vending and tech enhanced nutrition, that's got great potential, not just for people who don't have time to cook but might not want to cook, who are maybe on the go. How do you make sure that the products that go into the vending machines or the people using them or where you place them, how do you kind of smooth out that process and keep that loyalty coming back to your vending machine?
I think the first thing, we work with a lot of really big, large sort of corporate companies, so big legal companies, investment banks, media companies. And there's two key things that they always look for with any new suppliers and products, and it's often innovation and like if it ticks the health and well-being box. So I think the innovation piece, like having a digitalized vending machine, it's more in keeping. We recently did a fit out. There was this big investment bank. It was like a £70 million refurb, and they weren't going to stick old school vending machines in the corner. So it kind of had to be in keeping with the setting. So, that was one of the reasons they went with us. But the functionality of what the machine did, the fact that, we could give users all the nutritional information about every single product. They could filter by dietary preference. We could run pricing promotions on different products. So it would keep the sort of staff engaged and coming back to the machine. Because they're like, I wonder what products are in the machine this week or what's on discount. We also spend a huge amount of time curating the products in the machine. We're really fortunate that a lot of brands out there come to us and send us samples of their products, and we're constantly on the lookout to see what's new and interesting and what trends are in the marketplace. And again, we sort of do quarterly rotations of the products that we sell, and that keeps the sort of end users engaged, and it keeps us on trend. And it also keeps, obviously, the corporate workplace is happy that they see it rotating. Again, it's very much the polar opposite of traditional vending. And I think how we use that screen as well is important. So talking about engagement with the wider sort of community, we can customize all the content on our screens. So it could be corporate communications about things that are happening within the workplace, or it could even be just communicating about different brands we're selling, why products might be better than other products, is really, really key just to keep people engaged. And I think also we also combine it with running sampling sessions on site. So we engage some of our brand partners to come down. We also work with a lot of like smaller startup like food businesses, so they can come down, they can dish out their products in a really high-end investment bank, and then we can offer them on discount in our machine. So it kind
just
of
lined yourself up for hundreds of questions after the panel. The line's going to be out the door. No, it sounds really cool. I think the thread of all of that is diversify and maybe have other elements aside from your core business. Obviously nail it, like Jack said, but make sure that you're flexible enough to be able to perhaps offer some more.
Definitely. I think every single client of ours has got a slightly different requirement in maybe the products that we sell. So there's that being slightly agile and being reactive to what they want. And I think Jack made a really good point before about being an advantageous position when, if you bring in technology from the start, like we custom built every piece of our software from the beginning. So as we evolve, we've got this huge tech roadmap of things that we want to bring on board further down the line, but it's just a case of timing. But because we build it from scratch, we've got that versatility and flexibility.
Yeah, so actually that you're doing really well on leading on to the next topics. This is very, very helpful. Yeah, I know, you kind of highlighted it for you. So we're going to now kind of focus on branding and comms. It's an area, that I see in wellness a lot, being a kind of brand specialist as a lawyer. But for businesses, it's, absolutely essential that you have that identity and that you can speak to your consumer. So Phil, you touched on it there with your software. When you kind of started developing that, was that really a step change for the business in growing it and pushing it forward?
Definitely, and I think actually just on the brand element, just to mention that first, one of the reasons like the business is called Mother, and when we came to doing the whole name storming exercise, it was kind of a name that no one else would have ever thought of calling a vending machine. It's very, very memorable, but it also humanizes kind of a mechanical, technological thing. And Jay, our brand and marketing director over there, so he can take a lot of credit for that. But I think, essentially what we've done with the machine and the different features of the machine, I think health is a very, very sort of subjective term. So what you might deem as healthy might be different to me. But I guess the key thing is like providing that information to the end consumer, and then you can take that information and it's up to you how you interpret that. So when we were developing the software, like there's certain features that we knew were absolutely crucial, and they were interlinked with wanting to be a sort of healthy vending provider. I touched on the dietary preference filter that we had before. So things like gluten-free, dairy-free, sort of vegetarian, like they're not all important to one individual person, but little bits and pieces of them are. So we wanted to make sure we built that in from the start, having all the nutritional information, the macros, also like nutritional like advice on different products. Again, giving the consumer as much possible data about the products, and then it's up to them what they want to do with it ultimately. And I think, the whole architecture of the software, it's interlinked to like the data. So we get real-time data feeds of every single thing that's happening with the machine, including the products that we sell. So we kind of chart and we analyze that data, and then we can customize the products in the machine to the individual site. So what might sell in a corporate environment will be very different to a media environment versus a gym environment. And we use that, and then we customize and personalize it to the individual site. Which is a really, really key point.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that goes even further than just personalisation at a very individual level. It's looking at it from a corporate perspective as well, getting them to engage with that so that their corporate offering is more attractive to their employees or whatever.
Definitely, and I think as we've sort of grown and got bigger and bigger, and we've got more and more data, and it's really interesting to see the different trends. And again, it's using that data not in an evil way, but in a really positive way to actually offer people what they want. Like we differ from other vending companies in the sense that, well, we actually sell stuff people want to buy. It's not just powered by Nestle, say, so it's kind of, and I hope no one from Nestle's here, but it's...
I think you're safe.
But, so it's, that product curation is really linked into the data, so it tells us what we should and shouldn't be selling.
Cool. That's really good. I think data for evil is a topic that's coming up a lot, so working against that is definitely the way to go. Nicky, we've talked obviously about a lot about what's behind the product and the service offerings. How do you communicate the strategy of what the solutions actually are, and how do you get people interested in actually engaging with BioBeats?
Yeah, sure. So before going to a big shout out to Lucy, who's our head of marketing over there.
Love all the shout outs.
There's a wave. There we are. She literally got me here today, and it's going through I think it is a challenge of how you communicate what we do. We like I said, we come from quite complex data. I was in meetings all this morning talking about the research coming from Oxford about interoception. And I'm getting my head around it, so trying to explain that to a general audience. But also we have lots of different stakeholders. So we obviously have investors. We are a B2B product, so we're working with usually HR teams, sometimes finance teams, or individuals, office managers. And they'll have different needs. So they'll come to us and say, look, we've got high turnover, high presenteeism, absenteeism. We're looking to reduce costs. We'd like to increase productivity. So we come to them with those marketing messages. If you were to go to any NHS staff and say, we've got an app to improve productivity, they'll probably throw their phone at you. So it's about how we communicate our messages at different levels. And obviously, we've only got one website. We have that. It's the main access that people have to where we come from. So how we communicate what we do in a really simple, accessible way is important. But also, I think you're saying about health is different for everyone. It means different things. And our product's incredibly personalized. That's where all our AI comes from. It's a platform where everyone can have entirely different journeys. But to have that core message, I think check back in, come to our website in next week. I think we're updating. 2 weeks. Come back, check in 2 weeks. We're just going through a big rebrand to exactly that question. So, check us out.
Amazing. And so, Jack, I think in FitTech, as you mentioned before, people want to solve every question, every problem that's out there, and there's lots of different ways that they could go, and there's a lot of competition. So how and what are your recommendations to businesses to kind of cut through that, still be innovative, but also stand out?
Yeah, so echoing what both Phil and Nicky have said so far around how do you position two organisations, we see far too often people just say, here's your app for productivity, drop it and walk off, which is absolute madness. And taking physical activity as an example, you do not just provide a technology solution for a gym. There are two different gyms, really, within the physical activity market. There's the public sector ones and the private sector ones. The private sector ones care about their financial return. The public sector ones, they care about financial return, but also they care about social impact. And there's a really good example of that. So Serco are a big physical activity provider in the UK, and they released an app for their users. Their users range from Gen Z, which has been spoken a lot today, all the way through to, I don't even know what generation it is, but older ones. But, they get a lot of kickback on that because they're saying you're spending our money on developing this app. We don't really want an app. However, after 6 months, they're able to say, well, actually, that app has increased usage on average coming to the gym 2 times a month, which is huge. It's increasing member retention. But the stat that they really push out around it is that each user, their life is extended by 1 to 2 years. And cumulatively, that's 44,000 years they've added on to people's lives because they've introduced an app. Yeah. And I think that's incredibly powerful stuff to be talking about. And then another point around the marketing, and Ian and I had a conversation about this earlier. I don't know if Ian's in here, and shut me up, Ian, if I say something too far. But terms like artificial intelligence, that is an immediate switch off for me, and I work in technology. For those outside of technology, what does that mean? it's scary. People are thinking about Terminator, and that's what we really need to cut that out of all of our messaging across the entirety of the wellness space. Let's not go for the techie terms. Yeah, it's artificial intelligence, but actually that's a personalised service. Personalised service means something to me, and that's something that I want to explore. I don't care about AI.
But investors do.
But investors. Well, if you've got an AI technology that's based on blockchain, and you're a unicorn, then you're going to be fine.
So although we don't like calling it AI, it is really important, and obviously there's a big opportunity there for businesses to harness that technology, let's call it, that general technology, and move things forward to the next level, and also do so really quickly, because I think one thing that we all perhaps take for granted is how quickly this all changes, and how quickly the consumer can change, how often they can change their preferences. So, Nicky, going to your point, obviously you've got the rebrand or the kind of repositioning of the communications coming out, but thinking more about trends going forward in the future, how do you see kind of data and AI and those kind of big topics filtering into the wellness industry, and what opportunities do you see out there?
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually really excited about it. I'm part of the whole Tech for Good movement, and I think it could easily go either way. But I have high hopes that people are educating themselves, learning about it. So in terms of where we are now and where I see the future, I think where we are now, we have to be quite active in how we're dealing with technology. We have to pick up a phone. BioBeats uses clinically validated questionnaires. At the moment, you have to fill those in. The way we're doing workplace wellbeing is starting to be more passive rather than reactive, which I think is fantastic. We've got a lot more work to do, but it's around catching things before they happen and intervening at the right moment. In the future, I see it being much more passive data collection. So BioBeats use a wearable to check in on the state of your body. So we do body, brain, and mind. That's sort of the algorithm that we use to pull together the data that we have. Things like digital phenotyping, so the way you use your phone, the tones in your voice. There's a lot of research around that. I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm not a futurist. I can't predict on that. But I think that's interesting, and it will settle down into something that's actually really genuinely quite useful. So much more passive data collection. The fact I'm just wearing this and I don't need to do anything with it, I think is great. What else? And also more predictive. So instead of trying to catch someone before a potential negative health event comes, it's going to be more predictive to say this will happen, this is what you need to do. So I think that's really interesting. Coming with all of that is data security and user knowledge about how their data is being used. And I'm really excited to see what's going to happen there. So blockchain, people understanding their own data and having control of that. I'm really interested to see where that's going to go in the future.
Yeah, I think first step is understanding blockchain, and then understanding what it can do for your business. I think
it will happen. It will,
1 and 2.
We'll turn around and realise that it's here before we've realised it. I just don't know.
Definitely.
My favourite quote is the future is here. It's just unevenly distributed.
Nice.
So we just need to work out when the majority of us will have that.
Yeah, more accessible. That sounds good. So, Phil, for you guys at Mother, what's on the horizon? Do you think that the approach that you've adopted can have bigger impact throughout wellness or retail, even more generally? What's kind of coming up on your to-do list?
I mean, I kind of agree with the whole sort of tech for good, and that's exactly like how I look at it. I mean, obviously, but I think the whole sort of harnessing the power of data for that personalisation, customisation, better for the end customer, better for the clients, and it's better for the brand partners that we work with. Selling people things that they actually want to buy and that are actually good for them can only be a good thing. And one of the things in our tech roadmap is we're developing a Mother app, which is linked to the machine. So you can almost have that sort of hyper customization of, your profile is linked to the machine, and it will only show you things that are of interest to you. Any new products that may come onto the marketplace, it will notify you about them. And it could tell you about a potential sampling session that we were saying about before, which is really, really quite exciting for us. I think Another feature we're looking at is sort of product upselling. So, not everything in our machine is super healthy. There's a range of products. So if someone goes for a slightly less healthy option, we could upsell the healthy alternative and be suggestive about what they may want to replace one item with another, which is kind of quite interesting. And again, it's using the tech and the data for good. And I think, there's lots of really exciting things in our tech roadmap that I probably don't want to disclose.
Yeah, don't. As an IP lawyer, keep them secret.
But I think also, other sectors that we're looking at going into as well is sort of like the education sector, so like schools and universities. Obviously, there's loads of press about vending machines in schools being banned, vending machines in hospitals. We haven't really sort of delved into those sectors yet, but we've got some really exciting conversations going on there. Talking about using the machine to give information to the end consumer. Well, where better place than a school or a university? And it's kind of educating people from that young age where, it can really make a positive impact.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one thing we've seen throughout the wellness industry is an expansion. It's not just B2C and C is your individual consumer that's going to buy a product. There's so much opportunity in education, whether that's from, primary school to university. Those spaces are absolutely full of people who want to engage with wellness, but also public sector stuff, which Jack, obviously you've had a huge impact on. And you come across a lot of interesting trends, a lot of cool ideas, but do any really stand out to you as the kind of next area?
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree about schools, education.
It's nice when you have a panel that agrees with each other.
We'll find something.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll find something.
Probably our research. So for us, and I think for the whole wellness industry, it's got to be that market that isn't engaging with us already. I think technology provides new and engaging ways in order to engage with these people. So particularly in physical activity, we know 37% of people aren't reaching the 150 minutes of activity a week. But there's loads of great tech which are starting to, one way of putting it is trick people into physical activity. The sexy way of saying it is stealth health.
Nice.
So apps like Pokemon Go, proven to increase step counts, daily step counts by 26%. I'm not walking because I want to go for a walk. I'm walking to catch Pikachu. And that completely changes your view of physical activity and wellness as a whole. And all of a sudden you're doing it because you really want to get involved with it. It's the same with things like Sweatcoin. So Sweatcoin is the fastest growing fitness app in the world. Incredible app and incredibly simple. You get incentivized to move. So for your steps, you can pick up a discount in your local gym, or you can pick up nutritional supplements, or whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be activity related. So I think there's a real opportunity for tech providers to look into that space and how to start playing around with different models. But I think everyone's saying it, but data is obviously incredibly key. I think we've got to start looking further forward now, though. So the health and wellness industry has got data coming out of its ears. Whoever's got access to my wearable data knows me inside out. But what are we actually doing with that data? So yes, let's analyze it. And it's really cool, the stuff that you guys are doing. But then what is the next step after that? So how are we actually using it in order to encourage the activities that we want to encourage? So, things like how do we embed it into chatbots to get people out of them? Keep Me were talking about that earlier. We work with a business called Coach AI, have a chatbot as well, and we'd encourage them to start using data in a new way to engage people on a deeper level. And something that I'm particularly interested in right at this moment in time is if we know what the demographic is within a leisure centre, then at one particular moment, then how do you use that data to change the atmosphere of that leisure centre? So if it's particularly over 55-year-olds, which we know at 11 o'clock on Mondays, normally it is over 55-year-olds, well, then let's play music that we know they're into. And let's start creating better experiences, because now we've got the capability to do that. But I think overall, our message is with UK Active, it's kind of like what a time to be alive in this space, because there's so much opportunity. Yes, there's a lot of competition, but particularly in tech, there's a huge amount of more work we can do and new things that we can discover.
So overall, a really positive message, I think, from all of our panelists. So we do have a few minutes, yes, for some questions, and there are a couple of roving mics. So does anybody want to ask a question? Just pop your hand up and we'll come to you. Yeah, lady in the front. Thanks, Katerina.
Hi. So last year I attended a sort of marketing conference, and there was a lot of talk about AI and how to use it in order to sell your products and to, get to know people really intimately through their social interaction, social media interactions and all that sort of thing. This all sounds great because what you're doing all sounds great because it's being used sort of for driving good. The cynic in me sort of can't help wondering with the businesses that you're going into and all that sort of thing that there's some sort of a link or maybe the other question is this just more data of ours, which can be used for good, but at the same time we're just slowly more and more becoming, I guess, completely transparent or watched, viewed by either a company or an organization or something like that.
Yeah, so a data kind of control, privacy type angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just another part to that also then is, where you're going into companies more so perhaps with your organizations, where it's predicting, stress or, health issues and things like that. Is there the possibility of a flip side that companies can sort of see when a worker's just not going to be much use anymore and to get rid of them as such?
Mm.
So the evil side to data, I think.
Yeah, I can start. It's a nice, easy question to start with. Thank you. Data privacy. Great point. So that, and I don't think I talked about it enough. So we work with individuals. Individuals have the technology. Some of that data is aggregated and anonymized up to the organizational level. So there's a dashboard that organizations can see of that user data. Now, the reason we do that is so that we're not putting all the pressure on the individual to reduce their stress. We're not going in and being like, oh, you've got an app, you're fine. your well-being should be great. We're putting the pressure on the organization to say, okay, it's not the individual. This entire department is at risk of clinical depression. You need to do something. It's your structures that are causing it. That's what changes well-being in the workplace. It's not individuals coming and going. It's the structure that they exist in that needs to change. And that's why a lot of our content's based around the HSE model of stress management, so health and safety executive. So it's based around the demands that are placed on you, the control that you have over those, your tasks, and the support that you have with that. So it's a lot around building social support, building social connections. And that's why it's really important we work with B2B, is because if we're, our previous model was B2C, but you can't create a well-being culture if you're working with individuals. You need to go into an organization, work with them at a strategic level and grassroots. Privacy is hugely important with that. If we've got no one using our products because they're worried about the safety, then they're not going to use it. So it's incredibly important to us. And it's a really new area. So NICE guidelines on digital interventions. NICE is, it's not just NICE, it's National Excellence Framework. They've just come out in March. So this is so new. Legislation is just catching up, but it's very much here. So it's making sure that these products are abiding by it as well.
And I'd echo we are so early on in our particular industry and digital transformation, and at the end of the day, mistakes are going to be made, but it's not a mistake that we can make around personal data. I'm no lawyer, despite sitting in Bird and Bird with a microphone on. But, I think there are people, I know people in Bird and Bird are looking at these kind of things and making sure that the right kind of legislation is put in place. But it is a very, very important issue. And in our consumer research we did around fit tech, that was the third biggest barrier to adopting technology in the first place for any consumer was data privacy.
Yeah.
And you see that through the discussions around Facebook and all the other big firms.
Yeah, for sure. So a positive message, going to it with your eyes open and being realistic about it, but putting those boundaries and barriers in place so that you do control it in the right way. We're going to wrap up now, so I'd like you to join me in thanking our amazing panel, to Jack for the end.